Hi, my name is Waffles, and I'm a political commentator. So some girl is posting saying that Kevin O'Leary is offering to buy TikTok. 2004 to present, it says that his political party affiliation is conservative. I mean, to me, he looks like a MAGA turd. No, this is not a good thing, because what I'm seeing is like when I'm going on all these different platforms trying to see how stuff works and stuff, and there's a difference between the way that reality actually functions versus the agenda of what it is that MAGA is trying to accomplish. And considering that MAGA extremists are the ones who have been engaging in recent terrorist attacks against the United States, I do think that seizure of the media is something that we should be concerned about, especially with the high level of concern that Americans have over Russian interference in our political system. These guys are not making effective policies. And there is plenty of data to back that up. For example, MAGA and Republicans have recently been doing a lot of trash talking about women and how women need to be controlled. This is bad for the economy. Women's paid labor contributes $7.6 trillion to the United States GDP each year. In 2014, women's paid labor accounted for 37% of GDP. Okay? Now, what I'm experiencing is I'm getting harassed out of my jobs because of the rhetoric of our politicians. I'm also seeing that the fair labor laws, are not being enforced right now because they defunded our agencies that are supposed to enforce the law, including the SEC, which enforces laws against fraud. There's plenty of reasons why the American people should be absolutely outraged at the things that these politicians are doing, because in my opinion, based on my observations, it looks like the things that these politicians are doing is robbing the American people blind by making policies that have little to no basis in reality. Policies that are the opposite of what would be effective. And I believe it's because these people that are currently, trying to seize up our political offices are actually hardened criminals. That is my opinion. And I am an American, and I'm free to express my opinion. It is my First Amendment protected right of freedom of speech. And I'm going to continue to do so. In 2021, female Hispanics in the U.S. contributed $1.3 trillion to the GDP. Yet another example of why it is that hating women and minorities is horrible for the economy. So, I think they're trying to ban TikTok because they're getting called out on their BS. We all know that mainstream media is controlled by like 2 or 3 people trying to control the narrative. And that's why we are, there's criticism about independent journalism right now. But I think the independent journalists are doing a way better job than our mainstream media, and I think the majority of Americans would agree with that. Other than that, again, like I said, I think they're trying to go on that tangent because they don't want us to stop their crime spree. With that being said, a lot of these people that have these very hateful, out of touch with reality mindsets of what they're trying to enforce over us citizens are very old and don't understand or experience reality in the same way. But other than that, I just think they have criminal intent with most of this stuff. And they should be held liable, but if they're controlling our court system, then that's a problem. But one of the things that I think that is very sad that I'm seeing happen in this generation is that we have a lot of very talented and skilled people in this country who are not being given the recognition that they deserve for their talents. And I also think that when it comes to things like the media, we have every right to be involved. And it's also the normal passing of time that the new generation is going to take on the torch, because these old cronies aren't going to live forever. And the reason why I'm pointing out age in this is because there's a lot of things that have happened in our history that would not be considered acceptable today. And a lot of the behaviors that these politicians are engaging on are happening on that basis. But other than that, what did Vladimir Putin do to seize so much control in Russia in order to get to power? He seized control of the media. So I don't want to see Kevin O'Leary taking over TikTok, and we've already been exposed to these other platforms. So if Kevin O'Leary wants to try and do the same thing that's, like, for example, being done to X, or what I'm witnessing on Clapper, or witnessing on Meta platforms, and try to force people to consume right-wing, extremist, hate material, I'm out. I ain't gonna be on here. I'll be on these other apps talking to real human beings that actually have working brains and souls. I don't want to be made miserable on some application with a bunch of people who are like eating a crap ton of preservatives, that's brains hardly work, that feel like the world needs to magically cater to them because they feel privileged because of whatever color their skin is or whatever. I'm not participating in that. I don't want to go on platforms and consistently witness the dehumanization of women no matter where I go. I'm sorry, but I am straight, and I'm not interested in looking at a bunch of women, you know, not wearing clothes and various things happening to them. And that's what's happening on a lot of platforms. And I just want to remind everybody, while I'm going on a tangent on here, that these guys targeted women with the financial crimes that they've been engaging in over the last 4 years. And they think that they're going to get away with it because they think that nobody cares about women. And this is why it is such a problem that nobody's listening to women, and they're just expecting us all to handle this on our own. And ignoring the relevance of the fact that women are going missing and being unalived at an alarming rate in this country. And financial crimes are happening inside of our government. Okay, women are like half of the population. And based on what my report says that I'm hanging on to, that I am not going to distribute until I'm done writing because I don't want it to be perverted, because this is what needs to be understood. They just targeted women. They just robbed like half of the freaking nation, going after the women and the disabled and the elderly. It is not helping us fix our problems and figure out who's doing the bad things and what to do about the bad things when we ignore what's going on with these different groups because we see it as a them problem. Because if a group of criminals can come in and rob half of the population and nobody's going to notice because women aren't considered to be equal human beings in the United States, that makes it much easier for them to get away with what they're trying to do. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with all this belittling speech and smirking at women and all this crap that we just saw during this vote casting thing that just happened on the 6th here today, January 6, 2025. So when they're doing that, they're doing it to blanket the crimes that they're committing. So I'm looking at a news article by Reuters. It just came out. It is titled Mayors, Rabbis, arrested in NJ corruption probe, New Jersey. This is a 10-year investigation titled Operation Bidrig, BIDRIG. This operation exposed influence, peddling, and bribe taking among a network of public officials and a separate multi-million-dollar money laundering ring that funneled funds through charities operated by local rabbis. I got 1 minute. I'm going to read just this opening statement. It says, dozens of New Jersey politicians, officials, and prominent rabbis were arrested on Thursday in a sweeping federal probe that uncovered political corruption, human organ sales, and money laundering from New York to Israel, officials said. Go to part 2. I only got 10 minutes on her. I'm going to go to part 2. Welcome to part 2. We're looking at this news article from Reuters that was published on July 23rd, 2009 by Edith Honan. It is titled Mayors, Rabbis Arrested in New Jersey Corruption Probe. I'm going to read the opening statement on this article. The first paragraph says, Dozens of New Jersey politicians, officials, and prominent rabbis were arrested on Thursday in a sweeping federal probe that uncovered political corruption, human organ sales, and money laundering from New York to Israel. This is a reminder that the United States has the most people going missing of any country in the world, and it also has the most serial killers. This is statistical data. You can look it up. I am not here to explain every tiny little thing. I think that's very concerning, and I think that, if that is something that you're questioning, you don't drill me online for it. You go on Google. All right, so, there's very strange things that happen to women in the United States. They're in the news, consistently about women who have gone missing, including young children. So we have a societal problem. The United States has not ratified into law a bill called CEDAW. That's CEDAW. That is the United Nations Charter for Rights of Women. And it also has yet to ratify the ERA. And that is because Donald Trump is the one who was supposed to ratify the ERA when it came across his desk and didn't. So I'm just looking at this news article that says that, that there was some politicians involved with, it looks like, political corruption, human organ sales, and money laundering. I'm an American citizen, born and raised, and I have the right to free speech under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution is the law of the land. Without the Constitution, the United States loses its sovereignty as a nation and could be subject to attack. So, the Constitution is the law, and it needs to remain the law. And if it doesn't remain the law, good luck with that for whoever the crazies are that are out there right now speaking out against the United States Constitution, because the United States Constitution is what actually makes the United States a country. So I'm going to use my First Amendment free speech of right, and I think that every American civilian, every citizen here, every person in the general public has the right and reason to, criticize our politicians for the things that they have done. That is part of my First Amendment right. That is part of why the First Amendment was written. We have every right to engage in public dialogue with one another regarding what our politicians are doing. It is part of our constitutional rights as American citizens. And it is the reason why those rights are written in the Constitution. I have been monitoring what has been taking place overseas as a result of what my tax dollars are being spent on. And I saw something quite alarming and incredibly inhumane the other day that definitely constitutes human rights violations. And, considering that Israel is a part of the UN, it is technically what is going on over there. It certainly appears to me to be violations of the law. And I think that a lot of us in the world have borne witness to what is taking place. And since that's part of the UN charters, some of the things that are happening over there, could be considered illegal under international law. And so for me, I'm witnessing my tax dollars be spent on that. So, I'm a human rights activist, and unfortunately, I witness things that a lot of other people don't witness that are horrible to have to deal with. But if we don't, investigate, we can't figure out what's going on and solve problems. Part of the reason why, having a bunch of right-wing extremists controlling all of the media platforms where all of us just get spammed with hate speech to try and get us to shut up is a bad idea. And why I don't support seeing any conservative ever purchasing TikTok or having full control over the mass media platforms that we use. So my money, as a United States citizen, my tax dollars are getting sent to provide weaponry for Israel. And first of all, I think there's a lot of crap going on the global stage. I think it makes people uncomfortable. I think it's scary. I think that war itself is a disturbance of the peace. And there is a reason why it is frowned upon. Because if this is what we're going to do as a civilization, yeah, it's going to be a really low quality of life. So I just posted 2 YouTube videos yesterday where I went on an absolute tangent about how ridiculous this is, the things that these MAGA people have going on in their head about what they want to happen here in our country, where we live, where we have our children and our families, and there are people trying to do all kinds of stuff, like go to school to be a doctor, or like, learn skills that are more useful than driving around in a tank watching everything go kaboom. There are women, children, elderly, and disabled in this country, as there is in any other country. And I don't think that any of those individuals are necessarily too privy on the idea of just taking up arms, and don't necessarily have reason to think that that's a good time. And it kind of seems like MAGA supporters really want that to happen. A lot of the way that they speak and the things that they promote. And I gotta say, not everybody in this country is on that bandwagon, and that sounds like a really bad idea. And I don't think that we should allow that way of life to be something that these people are going to just cheer right into and try to force us into living that way. So there's that. But yeah, anyways, this news article from Reuters says opening paragraph, it says dozens of New Jersey politicians, officials, and prominent rabbis were arrested on Thursday in a sweeping federal probe that uncovered political corruption, human organ sales, and money laundering from New York to Israel. I don't care about all the specifics. Right now, what I see is that my politicians are, trying to force religion upon the people, and I'm seeing that rabbis were arrested in a federal probe involving political corruption and human organ sales to Israel. So what I saw the other day on this other platform was that there was a whole yard full of Israeli men rattling a freaking wall, demanding access to a prison in Israel full of women. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is unacceptable. And that is what my politicians in the United States here are using my tax dollars to fund. I have every reason as American citizen to want to criticize those behaviors, as well as behaviors of, rhetoric and dehumanizing women and minorities and peoples with disabilities in this country, especially when I'm looking at something like this. Because our politicians know good and well, as Republicans in Congress that drafted that bill to give these people money to do what they're doing, and as President Joe Biden, who also signed that bill that those people wrote. These people, the whole of them, know what is going on over there. And they have airplanes, so who knows what they're actually getting involved in. I'm wondering what's up with the friendship with this Netanyahu guy, but I think a lot of Americans do not support this, and I think that not supporting it is justified. I think that it's a reflection that our politicians are not acting in the interest of the country, and the whole world is bearing witness, and it does not reflect well on our country that we live in. And I think the fact that something so horrendous is being orchestrated with our tax dollars that represents us as a nation, this is a danger to the public safety of the people who live within the United States. I think that if this is the kind of stuff that our politicians are engaging in and are endorsing, they should be questioned for being involved in such things, and it should not be encouraged that they're engaging in hate speech. And I think that what you're getting with all this hate speech is an attempt to get you to look the other way from directly where they committed the crimes. My name is Waffles, and I'm a political commentator. I am expressing my opinions and my thoughts on things that I have witnessed and learned and educated myself on, in order to help raise public awareness and help keep people in America educated and give them things to reflect on so that they can have dialogue and come to their own conclusions. I'll probably make a part 3. I'm out of time. Welcome to part 3. So we're looking at this news article that was published by Reuters on July 23rd, 2009 by Edith Honan. The title is Mayors, Rabbis Arrested in New Jersey Corruption Probe. I'm going to read the first paragraph on here. It says, dozens of New Jersey politicians, officials, and prominent rabbis were arrested on Thursday in a sweeping federal probe that uncovered political corruption, human organ sales, and money laundering from New York to Israel. So this discussion, this long video, multi-segment video, started with discussion about what's going on with the TikTok ban. I personally find it incredibly ironic that, you know, shortly after Donald Trump called members of Congress to have a bill shot down that was to provide border security to the United States, Texas Governor Greg Abbott then put a bunch of migrants on buses and shipped them throughout the United States. This is during a post-pandemic policing shortage that this took place. These things can be looked up. They're researchable on the internet. I am not going to take time to go into deep detail on these things because I have more important things to do with my time. If any MAGA people come into my comments trying to drill me with questions about that, I would like to remind you how convenient and easy it is to use Google. So this is something that has happened, and I'm making commentary on it because I'm a political commentator. I personally, from my own experience and speaking only for myself, find it very strange that it is like immediately after these migrants were shipped throughout the country, and I got really mad at what I just saw and went online and made statements about that it looks like Texas Governor Greg Abbott may be human trafficking, that they very quickly introduced a bill to ban TikTok. I'm an American citizen and I have the First Amendment right to free speech, and the reason why we have the right to free speech, if you study American history, does have to do with my right to criticize what it is that my politicians are doing. I do not support this Kevin O'Leary guy trying to purchase TikTok. So a handful of us, not just me, have noticed that when we go onto the American platforms that they're trying to force us into using in trying to instigate such a ban, that the people on these other apps are very cruel towards us, and the content is also very lewd and inappropriate. The particular apps that I am criticizing would be Facebook and Instagram, which are, technically one website, even though they're two, because they're controlled by Meta, which is Mark Zuckerberg, who has been meeting in closed-door meetings with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago while Donald Trump is not president. And it also appears that there is evidence of a few members of Congress getting financial gains through what appears to be possible insider trading through the United States Congress in trying to pass such a bill to ban TikTok. I personally have found that, when I look at my news feed on Facebook, I don't even see the people that I'm following. There's just weird crap showing up on my timeline of, right-wing extremist propaganda telling me how great Israel is. That is what I am witnessing when I go on Facebook. So I am not interested in using that platform. I'm also seeing a lot of inappropriate images of women that are practically wearing nothing, along with lewd commentary when I try to use Facebook. Again, these are things that I personally would not prefer to see. I'm not trying to spend my time on that platform looking at that kind of crap. And that kind of crap on any platform is going to make me not want to use it. Same thing on Clapper. Same thing on Instagram. All of these platforms seem to have the same problem. The people on there are very hateful. The content is lewd. And there is extremist propaganda on all of the websites that they are trying to push us into using. Other than that, when it comes to business and business ownership and running a business and promoting your business, it is 2024. Okay? We're not selling oranges on the side of the highway. There is 300 million people in this country with various skill sets. If you understand anything about economics or running a business, then you will know that we are in a global economy. And reach and organic reach does matter if you're trying to run a business. And so we need to be able to use these platforms to be able to run our businesses. For those of us who do business online or even want to be recognized by the public with how the economy works nowadays. For me personally, I make shirts and merchandise, and I have a global market. And trying to take Americans out of the global market by banning TikTok is going to do economic harm to the United States. It's a violation of fair trade regulations. You see, if you know anything about business, then because I have been going to college for business, I'm sure there's other people that know this, that it is important to be able to use platforms that have a large reach. Okay, so Meta, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, for some reason, is considered in those rankings. Okay, there's only one of those that is not filled with a bunch of right-wing extremists shoving crap down our throats that we don't give a crap about because we're decent human beings. So, in essence, my opinion, based on what I'm seeing, is that this is an attempt to not only silence Americans from free speech and try to put us in an environment that is propagandized and limits free speech by limiting organic reach, which makes it even more interesting that, you see so much hateful crap and nasty stuff on these other websites because, none of us can even talk to each other on there anyways. TikTok has a booming economic opportunity. And for me personally, I have been through a lot because of what these politicians are doing, and I'm writing a book, and it certainly appears to me, after doing a report on the state of the backlogs in all of the United States federal agencies, including FOIA requests, that women particularly have been targeted in what appears to be a potential financial raid on our government. There has been a lot of money going missing that's not accounted for. And for some reason, our agencies aren't working properly. And now they're talking about getting rid of these agencies. Maybe because they might be trying to hide some sort of evidence of some sort of crime if we just get rid of all the records in those agencies. Maybe that's what they're up to. But, things are very strange here. And I think that Americans have every reason to criticize all of everything that I just said and our politicians and everything that they do because they're public figures. And that's why we have a democratic process where we elect people. But I am very, very disgusted and upset with the things that I have been seeing take place. I think part of the reason why TikTok has such a massive user base is because it provides economic opportunity. Economic opportunity that is especially important if something might have happened where United States public officials have been possibly engaging in mass-scale financial crimes through the United States government's federal agencies for the last 4 years, using the pandemic as an opportunity to move in on vulnerabilities in our government. And this is why we need to be paying attention to what it is that women and the disabled are going through and not ignoring it, because that's a large chunk of the American population. And in the middle of all this, we have religious extremists who are engaging in organ trafficking. So there's the end of my tangent. There's some stuff to think about.